Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, market historian Bob Hoye from chartsandmarkets.com runs down the action on the major markets. Are we in a period when a major correction can be expected? Bob takes a look at the hints the market is providing. Trends Journal publisher Gerald Celente warns we could be teetering on the brink of World War III and talks about what has him concerned and what you can do to keep yourself safe in so-called interesting times. Gerald doesn't hold back, so keep your volume control handy. Insidetracktrading CEO Hadik gives us a lowdown on the cycles for gold, silver, the U.S. and Canadian dollars, interest rates, and crude. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have a company showcase update from American Manganese CEO Larry Reaugh. We'll talk to Bob Hoye right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMY.V, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. Welcome back, Bob.
Yeah, Jim, it's always good to look over your shoulder at the markets and realize that earlier in the week, it was kind of soft to declining markets. Friday morning opened on the downside a bit, and then things just sort of generally recovered on the day. Couldn't see any really specific stories on it. Kind of like up 1% on the S&P, which these days in one day is not that much. But we're looking at absolutely remarkable action in the financial markets. You've had a terrific rally out of what was an amazingly fast crash into March. And on that one, once it started, we looked at previous periods of heavy liquidation, like in 1929 or 1873, and while they happened in the fall, the panic can only last so long, and I guess it ends when the last offside account is sold out. So in March the 19th, we did a piece, and it said that the bottoming soon kind of thing, because typically a crash like that would last 2 months, and that counted out to late in March. So and the markets, the selling pressures did clear for stocks, for industrial commodities, for the precious metals, for bonds and things like that. The selling pressures did clear, and then our stance was that quite likely the markets would rally out to at least mid-year, and they have, and then. But the panic prompted a panic in central banking circles, and the Bank of Canada and the U.S. Federal Reserve System went absolutely crazy in pushing out as much liquidity as they could. And it was also, we've just, Jim, covered the break in the financial markets without mentioning what the story was with them, which was the story about the coronavirus, which is still considered as a severe flu, but it's nothing like the Black Death of hundreds of years ago, where in Europe, from 1/4 to almost 1/2 of the population died, and it was massive. But this one, governments in many countries, virtually all countries, you can't say they went into panic But you can say they used the concerns about the coronavirus to shut down the economy. Never ever happened before. Even when the bubonic plague hit London in 1665, it was an important financial and commercial center then. And on that one, some 20% of the population died. That's not 20% of those who caught the disease. It was 20% of the population died. So, of course, trade and business collapsed. But it wasn't by government edict. So this thing with the Wuhan flu was extraordinary. And I think in large parts and in many different countries, deliberate to impose authority, and it's an old game where ambitious governments have used fear and built up and broadcast a fear such that they, of course, are the only ones that can fix the fear. So you end up trading security for authority, and you give up your freedom. So I think in retrospect, people will eventually look at it rationally and realize what it was all about. But then what we want to do is get back to the financial markets, because they have become extremely violent. The speculation has been immense, and some of the rallies out of the crash have been huge, and big enough such that on our technical work registered what we call upside exhaustions, and then there's another model we use which is giving sequential sells. So there's been quite a distinctive break in the markets since September 2nd. And it's also worth noting, Jim, that if there's going to be the discovery of financial crisis, it's likely to be discovered in late September through October and perhaps into November. All of the major crashes in history, going back 300 years, have occurred in the fall of the year. So the markets are vulnerable, and the markets were nervous during the week, but did close up yesterday, a positive close. So, and what one wants to look at with their portfolio is to, well, for us, if you're just first listening to this, it's a bit late, but on our advice since June has been to sell the rallies, and there have been some good ones, and build your liquidity, because if you go into a liquidity crisis, that's where it suddenly disappears, and then you're going to end up with some better valuations on some selling pressures. So, and this is where our technical work has been reliable over many years. And then, of course, the other half of it has been the historical side, where many people think that great booms are new. They may be new to them, but they've been around for a long time. And these great financial bubbles, the first one was in 1720, and when they fail, they can be followed by a long contraction. And the big 1929 example, which more people are familiar with, that was number 5. And I would suggest that this one is number 6. It has many of the characteristics of previous great financial bubbles, one of which is that the gold's real price goes down with the bubble, and then when it concludes, then the real price goes up. So the rally over the last year in gold stocks has been appropriate. The rally in the metals price has been appropriate, and also in U.S. dollars, when you adjust it for the rate of inflation, it's been going up as well, and that reflects improving profit margins. So our view is that we're in early stages of a long bull market for the gold sector, and we could be right at the start of a longish bear market for orthodox investments in stocks and lower grade bonds and things like that. So it's always an intriguing subject, and we see that this last action in the last week has been on the path to a contraction.
Bob, you have a special deal for our listeners?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when you get into very violent financial markets, the limit, it's really driven by fear and greed. I mean, this is a very simple explanation. But when you have technical measures, you can measure the degree of greed, which has been prominent during the summer, and you can measure the degree of fear. So certainly in a declining market, it's the old saying is like, when do you buy? It's like trying to catch a falling knife. But if you have good technicals, it helps. So what we're doing is 25% off of our regular subscription fee, and this offer is open until the Canadian Thanksgiving or American Columbus Day. So it's worthwhile taking a shot. You look at the websites, and you can get on board.
Bob, thank you so much for the update.
Jim, pleasure. Look forward to next week.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye, the chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com. Coming up, Gerald Celente, next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision.
AMY.V Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, AMY.V's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at AMYresources.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal, available online at trendsjournal.com. He's speaking to us from historic Kingston, New York. Gerald, it's great to have you back on This Week in Money.
Thanks for having me on.
Gerald, your new issue of Trends Journal is entitled Emasculation. Please tell us about it and how many pages are in this issue.
Well, it's probably about 70, 80 pages, and it's a weekly magazine. No, they emasculated us, M-A-S-K. Go back to March, go back to all the way up until June, from Fauci, America's #1 expert, as the media calls him. Fauci, by the way, means jaw in Italian, the jawboner, that said back in March on CBS that, that wearing masks isn't the thing to do. And the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention both did not recommend wearing masks. They only recommended it for people that were very ill to wear them in public, and showing all the facts on how they really don't work unless they're very high quality ones. But they all did a 180 under the pressure from governments. So now people, they buy the baloney. Just like as we mentioned, they call this the COVID war. Go back to February and March. We're fighting the COVID war. We're fighting the COVID war. And just like the people Heil Hitler marched to Mussolini and saluted Stalin, they marched off to the COVID war. Just like the people were so damn ignorant and stupid, as our cover shows several months ago by Anthony Frieda, who does these magnificent covers in the Trends Journal, dumb enough to believe George Bush's wars, dumb enough to believe the COVID war. Oh, you remember the Afghan war when Saddam Hussein had those weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda? Oh, how about that Afghan war going on now for almost 2 decades? We got to get that guy Osama bin Laden. He's hiding there. We got to go get him. And the ignorant people, 90% of them, bowed down to that murderous, low-life piece of garbage, George W. Bush, another daddy's boy, born on third base, thought he hit a home run, would be nobody, like little Andy Cuomo, like all of the rest of them. Daddy's boys, born on third base and thought they hit a home run, they'd be shoveling crap if Daddy didn't get them there before. So the people are obeying the orders from the low-life pieces of garbage, and you got one over there over in Canada, another daddy's boy. What was he doing, playing part-time teacher before this? If Daddy wasn't there before him, you'd think this guy'd be running the show. It's one big club and you ain't in it, as George Carlin said.
Are COVID times likely to lead to more volatility in the stock markets?
Volatility in the stock market, volatility around the world. This is unprecedented. These are the same ignorant, violent, murderous, narcissistic, psychopathic, psychological, demented, pathological liars that start wars with no exit strategy. Just like the Afghan war, just like the Iraq war, just like the Vietnam war. How about the Korean war? Let's name the wars. No exit strategy to this COVID war. The disastrous implications of this are in front of everybody's eyes, and they keep pumping up the equity markets, and they keep pumping money into the systems, so the average person doesn't really know how bad it is.
Which industries are losing the most businesses due to the COVID scare?
Well, tourism, entertainment, restaurant business, hospitality sectors, and they're destroyed. You know, and the things they don't talk about. You know, those things called trade shows and conventions. No, we won't talk about that. Most people don't know about those things. It's one business after another, and then all the interrelated businesses. So when you take the hotel business, restaurant business, the people that supply the food, clean the linens, on, clean the place up, on down the line, the trucks that take them, the drivers, all gone. This is not coming back. We are in the greatest depression, and it's only going to get much worse. They're going to keep artificially propping it up from time to time.
Was it a coincidence that the lockdown orders hit small business the hardest, but allowed the big box stores like Amazon online or Walmart to stay open?
No coincidence. I just talked to who the politicians are. Politics. Again, the stupid, ignorant masses, they fight among themselves. I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive. I'm a liberal. You believe in this garbage? What they call campaign contributions? How about bribes and payoffs? It's a takeover. Globalization did it. They put the smalls out of business. The bigs got bigger. They did away with the antitrust acts, the Robinson-Patton Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, Clayton Antitrust Act. How about the Glass-Steagall Act? One after another. Oh, and that Slimer that everybody loved in America. Little Jimmy Carter. Oh, yeah, the Carter, the religious Carter. Yeah, that's the guy that did away with their usury laws and allowed the big banks to become interstate when they were only allowed to be intrastate. And one after another. Oh, by the way, you like that Al-Qaeda? That's the slimy, murderous piece of garbage crap that gave money to Mujahideen. We gotta get them Russians out of Afghanistan. Oh yeah, people forgot that. Again, then it became Al-Qaeda, kept going under Reagan and on and on and on. So no, they only support the bigs. You have sick people destroying our lives in front of us. They're politicians, politics, sucking the life out of us. All we've become are plantation workers on the global plantation of Slavelandia.
Are we likely to see food shortages this fall and winter?
No, we don't see it. Maybe in some little sectors, but we don't see that happening.
Could gold and silver have seen their tops for the time being?
No, we don't see it. Maybe short term. And you just saw what happened with the banks. They just got caught stealing more money again. How many times do people have to read how they're rigging the markets? Grow up, everybody. And so they're going to keep gold and silver down because the currencies aren't worth crap. They're digital junk backed by nothing and printed on nothing. Every country around the world is dumping all this money into the markets and into the in fiscal and monetary stimulus to artificially prop it up. And why would anybody, with their right mind believe that these currencies are worth anything? So the higher gold and silver prices go up, it shows what a fraud's going on over there. So the banksters and the other criminals on Wall Street and the rest of the group are artificially propping up other currencies while they're trying to bring down gold and silver. Long time, I still see gold. As again, I had forecast gold would go over $2,000 an ounce this year, and back in June we said silver would rise at a higher rate than silver, and it did. And now they're bringing the prices down because of they're trying to pump more money in. So to us, it's only temporary. Long term, gold and silver still strong.
The U.S. dollar is moving higher. What could be causing that?
The other currencies aren't worth crap. And that's the only reason it's going up. And again, it's artificial. It's in front of everybody's eyes. Just a couple of weeks ago, the dollar hit a 2-year low. And now it's up to an 18-month high, or whatever, the whole thing's manipulated. Why would anybody want dollars? Again, only speaking for myself, I don't give financial advice. When you see the Federal Reserve dumping in trillions of dollars into the markets and the government dumping in trillions of dollars into the economy. What are you looking at? A $3 trillion deficit this year in the United States? Go back to February. Oh, it may be $1 trillion. Oh, it may be $1 trillion in 2020. That was before they started the COVID war. That was a big deal. And now it's going to be $3 trillion and the dollar's going up? What am I, 6 years old? I mean, the thing is fixed.
Should failing companies be bailed out by the government?
I'm sorry, what?
Should failing companies or industries be bailed out?
It's supposed to be capitalism. Who they bail out? They bail out their big buddies. And then they get paid off. What do you think of slimy, low-life, murderous piece of crap like a Bill Clinton? Oh, you like all the wars and the people he killed? Quote, I'm really good at killing people. Oh, that was Obama. I forgot. Yeah, that was too big to fail, that one, yeah. What do you think they get $300,000 an hour to talk for? It's called payback. And that's why they bail out the bigs. So of course they shouldn't. This isn't capitalism. It's socialism for the rich.
Would you be surprised to see higher interest rates?
Oh, they're not going up. They're going to keep going down. We're going to see negative interest rates in the United States is my forecast.
What do you see ahead for real estate and are people moving away from big cities?
Well, we had forecast people moving away from big cities in the Trends Journal in March before anybody even talked about it. No one was talking about the implications of the lockdowns. No one. No one of these prostitutes in the slimy media talked about it. We gave everything that's happening now. You go back to your Trends Journal, it's right there. Commercial real estate, we said it was going to go down the toilet, and we said people would be moving out of densely populated major cities in fear of the virus and rising crime rates. Back in March, in mid-March, and now it's happened. By the way, you said Kingston, New York? Google up Bloomberg, Kingston, New York. Out of 181 cities in America, the housing prices have gone up the highest here. And it doesn't make me happy, even though I own 3 of the most historic buildings in America on the most historic 4 corners in America, because they ruin life. They suck the joy out of it. So yeah, these areas are going to keep going up, and the markets will keep going up for a while as interest rates stay near record lows and actually go lower. So you're going to see new home sales continue to climb.
How are things at the Trends Research headquarters in Kingston, New York, with Governor Cuomo, lockdowns, protests, crime?
They're dead. There's no fun. It's a joke. It's a joke. I watch people drive down the street with the windows rolled up with masks on. Grow up! I see people at night walking down the street, not a soul on the street, no one around and a mask on. It's emasculation. Hey, listen, when I was a kid, the same slimy, low-life politicians and bureaucrats that suck their way up to the top so they get there having us hiding under desks in case an atom bomb went off. Oh yeah, that'll save your life. Get under that desk. We know best. Get under that desk. That atom bomb goes off, you're safe when you're under a desk. And people believed it just like they believe the COVID crap that they're shoving down their throats now. You know, my father would say may rest in peace, when I get upset, he'd say, son, don't get upset. People have little minds. And that's why they march off to Mussolini, salute Stalin, and Heil Hitler. Just like they're groveling to Gavin over there and Gruesome in California. Again, Daddy's boy Cuomo over here. Mindless Whitmer over there in Michigan. A little boy of nothing. A little nothing boy with cojones smaller than a mothball over there in Australia, that Andrews. Look what they're doing. What are your numbers over there in Australia? Oh, about 830 people died. 830 people died out of 25.5 million. I'm not good at math, but March, April, May, June, July, August, September, 830-something people dead in 6 months, and you locked down the place? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I forgot. Over 520 of them for elderly people from nursing homes. And look what the cops do to the people and how they beat them up because they won't obey orders. And the fines that they put on them. It's over. It's over. As long as people stay the cowards they are, it's only going to get worse.
Do you have any election predictions, and will Joe Biden still be the Democrat nominee on November 3rd?
Yeah, he'll be the nominee, but we don't think he's going to win at this point. The election is going to be between masks and no masks. And what Trump has to do is win. And both of them, I'm not voting for either of them. I don't vote for lesser of two evils. What Trump did to Iran, what he's doing to Venezuela, more sanctions on Cuba, the tax breaks that he gave to the very rich. You know, I don't have a favor of him either. You know, they both of them murderous. Biden is not a war that slimy little piece of crap didn't love and vote for. Anyway, Trump has to win the swing states. It's as simple as that. And by the swing states in the rural areas, they didn't go out and vote heavily the last time. They will this time. And the reason they will is because of Trump doesn't want a lockdown and Biden does. So we think that's what it's going to be about. And the presidential reality show debates, which start next week, that's going to be a clincher too, because if Biden plays his old self and can't remember what word he said from the sentence before, you know, that may be the end of it. Remember the Nixon-Kennedy debates. It was the debate that put Kennedy over the top. But right now we still see Trump, even though he's losing in the polls. And again, the Trends Journal, it's a fact. It's in black and white. We had forecast Trump as a winner in May of 2016 when the polls were exactly the way they are now, showing Clinton a winner.
We'll have more with Gerald Celente when This Week in Money returns.
Value from success. Growth in discovery. Golden Arrow Resources is a well-funded gold-copper exploration company with proven management and prospective properties in Chile, Argentina, and Paraguay. Golden Arrow trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, symbol GRG, on Frankfurt, symbol G6A, and the OTCQB, symbol GARWF. For more information, visit us at goldenarrowresources.com or call Sean at 778-686-0135.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Gerald Celente. Gerald, is it possible COVID-19 is a 100% hoax?
I don't think so. No. To me, what it is that they used it. The Chinese did. We were writing about the Hong Kong protests back in June of 2019, and they couldn't stop the protests. Everything they did, they couldn't stop them. So what happened was the Chinese couldn't stop it. The coronavirus broke out on Lunar New Year 2020, and they locked down the Yunnan province and other places, including Hong Kong. That's how they stopped the protest. Then they put in the draconian laws of the new security laws, and brought in, more troops or military police from Beijing, and put down the riots than to stop the Hong Kong protests. So to me, it's not a conspiracy theory. China used it. And by the way, China with a population of 1.4 billion people, you know how many people died in China so far? And you could say they're cooking the books. Well, let's say they're cooking them. Around 5,000. 5,000. 200,000 dead in America, 5,000 dead in China. And that's where it began.
Do you think the virus was deliberately released to stop those protests, or did they just take advantage of a happy situation for the government, not for the people?
I think they used it to their advantage, however it happened. And again, you know, go back to the hysteria with our Children's Journal magazine, January 28th. 106 dead in China, coronavirus. Our next line was 1.4 billion still alive. What the hell are you telling me 106 people died of a virus in a place where 1.7 million people or 5 million people die every year from air polluted related diseases? That's why they wear masks. So yeah, they pumped it up. And remember the media, they're building hospitals within 2 weeks, and how they got all that fear going. So I don't know if they used it purposely, but they used it.
We're hearing things that masks can cause significant health problems, including cancer and stillbirths due to the lack of oxygen. Could the push for masks be by design or by stupidity to make people sick?
By stupidity and power. Anybody that runs for office, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, two-term president of the United States, Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces, said anyone that seeks the office is either an egomaniac or crazy. That's a quote. You could look it up. I was assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 26 years old. I was there firsthand. The people that want these jobs as politicians are the people you hated in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. They're only concerned about their ego and never having to work a day in their life, getting the best benefits and pay they can with the stupid little minds that they have. And they don't have to worry about bringing in any income. They steal the money in the name of taxes. So that's who's running the show. And they don't know what they're doing.
Could an example of that be Canada's Parliament? People in Ontario, where Ottawa is, have to line up for hours and then be turned away from COVID test lines, yet the parliamentarians can go to a private clinic to get their tests instantly. Is that an example of how the politicians have one system for themselves and one for the public?
Of course. You keep going down the line. Again, these guys have been sucking off the public tit their whole life. They never worked a day in their lives.
Once fear is instilled in a population, how long does it take for that fear to go away?
It gets worse. Again, people say, how could they march to Hitler? How could they march to Hitler? The Germans are still ashamed of it. They're doing the same thing now. They'll do whatever they're told. You look over in Italy over there. It's an Italian. I'm ashamed of them. They were the first ones that followed. I used to spend a lot of time in Italy and dated a wonderful Italian woman. Well, not so wonderful, but anyway, I used to go back a lot. And I stopped going back. Matter of fact, I even have a cousin Vinny that lives in Italy. And I go back, and they're all complaining about how the bureaucracy controls everything. And I said, what are you guys doing to fight it? They, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And they didn't do anything. They don't do anything. 85% of the people in Italy approve of wearing masks. That was the first country that shut down. Where were they dying? Oh, the average age of the death in Italy? Oh, it was only 80 years old. Oh, in the Lombardy region that's highly polluted? Oh, yeah, that one. And they just march off. They just march off. They're doing it all over. And the people that fight against it, they call us conspiracy theorists, right-wingers, morons. That make up these labels. Little cowards, prostitutes, that get paid to put out by their government whoremasters and their corporate pimps.
Is COVID about a virus or an election?
Oh, it has nothing to do with the election. It's worldwide. Again, you go to Australia, go to New Zealand, go anywhere. It's a power trip. And what they did, again, one of our top trends for 2020 was New World Disorder. And again, we come out with those in December of the year before, so it was 2019. Remember, people forgot. Oh, there were only protests going on every week in Chile, in Bolivia, in Colombia, in Peru. Where else? Oh, in Algeria, in Mali. How about Lebanon? Yeah, remember France? All over the world. South Africa, India. And then what did the politicians do? They locked down everything and stopped the protests. So they used them to their advantage.
Are the COVID narrative and universal basic income being used to instill socialism, Marxism, and communism around the world?
I don't know. They use it to get elected.
Are governments paying people to do nothing during the COVID scare a disincentive to work in the future? And what happens when this money for nothing is taken away?
No, they're doing it to keep the economy going up so it doesn't crash on their during their rule. And they know how bad it is. They know how bad it is, and they're doing anything to keep it going.
In a speech this week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, "Build back better." That happens to be a catchphrase of Joe Biden and the Democrats. Could "build back better" be a catchphrase for globalism?
It's a catchphrase. It means nothing. It's crap spewing out of their mouth. It's crap. It either comes out of your butt or out of your mouth when you're a politician, and with them it comes out of both. It's useless, nothing words.
It looks like Canada's headed for continued massive government spending, lockdowns, and a severe recession. We might as well call it a depression. Are continued lockdowns likely to provoke civil unrest and violence, and should people be concerned for their personal safety?
Absolutely should be concerned with your personal safety. That's why we have survivalism articles each week in the Trends Journal by Brad Steiner, one of the top close combat and survival men in the Americas. And we're telling people how to fight for your life, because your life is going to be on the line. When people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And you're going to see people all over the world losing it and doing things that we would have never dreamt of before.
The World Health Organization related medical health officers in Canada aren't making people aware of natural therapies that can prevent them from getting viruses and also help them fight off viruses. The narrative they focus on is we need vaccines. Should people in Canada be concerned about that?
Well, they're doing it all over the world. You listen to all the media. Well, things will come back when everybody gets vaccinated. Things will come back when everybody gets vaccinated. And if you don't believe in getting vaccinated, you're a conspiracy theorist. So no, they keep selling it and selling it and selling it. And they're not going to stop.
We keep seeing comparisons on the internet of Hitler and the lockdowns being put in place by governments. Is this a fair comparison?
Yes, as I said from the very beginning. You know, just like people marched off to Mussolini, salute Stalin, and Heil Hitler. And they're doing it again. People are gutless for the majority, but it does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brushfires of freedom in the minds of men, since Samuel Adams. And I fight for freedom, and I put my money where my heart is. I launched Occupy Peace, and I had a major rally against little Andy Cuomo's orders, and I said, come on down and close me down, when I had a 4th of July rally on the Four Corners of Freedom. And I had Judge Napolitano from Fox News as the keynote speaker, talking about how they're robbing us of our freedom, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. So I'm fighting. And everybody out there listening, if you want to join the fight, subscribe to the Trends Journal. I just got a donation, a nice donation, from someone for people that can't afford to subscribe, because he knows how important our work is. So I'm not just talking, I'm doing. And if people don't do, then you get what you deserve. And you're going to deserve hell on earth, because that's where they're leading us to. Open your eyes and look around.
Could the leaders around the world that are imposing lockdowns be compromised and therefore answering to their masters?
Of course they are. They get paid. They're politicians. They get paid to do what they're told. Again, imbeciles and morons call it campaign contributions. Adults call it bribes and payoffs. As I said, you could hear Bill Clinton BS for free. You're going to pay him $300,000 an hour? It's payback.
What made Bill Gates an expert on viruses all of a sudden? That he's quoted by everybody. Oh, we have to do this. What does Bill Gates know about viruses?
Nothing. It's his money. And again, he gives so much money. Remember? The billionaires are so wonderful. He's been paying to get people vaccinated all over the world for decades. Yeah, remember that guy Carnegie? He built a public library system? Yeah, let's forget that. We're going to get people vaccinated. What? They're prostitutes. They're whores. All right? You pay a whore to put out. The prostitutes are whores. They're paid to put out. They're told what to do. I've been on everybody's show. I was on Oprah, the Today Show, Good Morning America. I know what the deal is. Every one of them, name them, I've been there, done it. they don't speak out. They sell you wars, one after another. And they sell you lies. They sell you what they're whores. They get paid to put out by their corporate whoremasters and Washington pimps. End of story.
Are the lockdowns crimes against humanity?
Yes.
Do you think political leaders believe they can get away with their draconian?
They are. They are. Not believe, they are. Again, look at the numbers. The people believe. Look what's going on in New Zealand. What do you got? Like 0.00003. Oh, we were all safe because of the lockdowns. Hey, wait a minute. They locked down Spain. They locked down. No, they're still getting cases. Oh, no. You're not getting all of it because you're healthier people. And they love that woman. That's the prime minister. And they have an election coming up in October, and it looks like she's going to win. Oh, and by the way, the fraud was just caught a couple of days ago without social distancing and not wearing a mask.
Do you think political leaders believe they can get away with their draconian measures because they think most of the people are sheep?
Yes. Why would you vote for them if you weren't a sheep or out of your mind? Who would vote for a lesser of two evils? How could anybody vote for an evil? Oh, Obama didn't kill as many people as George Bush did. Yeah, Obama, quote, I'm really good at killing people, that guy? Or the guy I want that guy Gaddafi out of there. Oh yeah, you destroyed the richest country in Africa. I want that guy Assad out of there. You can't understand why they have that refugee problem over there in Greece and all of those other areas. Yeah, but he wasn't as evil as Bush. All right? How could anybody with a heart and a soul vote for an evil? There's no such thing as lesser of two evils. Evil is evil.
Could we actually be in World War III now, a war of infiltration instead of invasion?
Now, World War III, we see coming. History's repeating itself. Go back to the 1930s. You had a stock market crash, currency war, trade war, Great Depression, World War II. You're going to see a market crash, currency wars, trade wars they never stop talking about when currency wars. Greatest Depression, World War III. And this will be the war that when they asked Einstein, a guy that knew a little thing about weapons, what kind of weapons will be used in the Third World War, he said, I don't know. He said, they'll be using sticks and stones to fight the fourth. And that's why I'm speaking with the concern and tone that I'm talking about. I am a trend forecaster. I'll put my track record up against anybody in the world. We'll begin by you putting up your books, your magazines that you've been writing for the last 40 years. Show me your credentials. And then we could talk about forecasting future trends. I see the future, and this is a future that is going to be hell on earth. We're already in stage one. And if we don't stop it, it will be the war that will be fighting the Fourth World War with sticks and stones.
Yeah,
as Einstein said.
Yeah, or if there are any sticks and stones left. For decades, the world's been run by evil people. What happens if they're no longer in control, and is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. Of course it's possible. That's what I said. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brushfires of freedom in the minds of men. And when you subscribe to the Trends Journal, that's our movement, is to unite the people of freedom, to live a life of liberty, love, joy, and beauty, not fear and terror. Look at little kids growing up and having to wear masks. Look at young people. You're not going to go out and party. You're not going to go out and party and stop singing. All right?
Where are we headed in the future economic trends?
Again, the Greatest Depression.
What can people do to help steel themselves, be prepared for something like that?
Get in the best shape you can. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You never hear one of these little slimy, low-life politicians or prostitutes talk about getting in the best physical health you can, about building up your immune system. Who's dying from this? CDC numbers. 94% of the people that died had 2.6 pre-existing chronic conditions. You got these pre-existing chronic conditions, then you get hit by the virus, bam, jack, you're dead. Healthy people aren't dying from this. Look at America. 42% of the people are obese. Look how many people from obesity are dying from this, and type 2 diabetes, and heart disease, and lung disease. Get in the best shape you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's how we win. That's how you win the fight. If you're in crappy shape, you're not going to win.
What's the latest on Occupy Peace?
Oh, right now, we're fighting for freedom. And that's what I'm saying. That's our movement. We're changing the name to Occupy Peace and Freedom. And that's what we need to do. And we must unite for freedom now, or again, we're going to be living it's hell on earth. We're living in dictatorships. Matter of fact, Van Morrison, it's in the Trends Journal, is coming out with new songs against the dictatorships. And as we wrote in the Trends Journal, I had written lyrics to get songs. How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my taxes? How am I going to cut your hair when they won't let me? I was writing lyrics for this back in March. We had a band together to put it together, anti-lockdown laws songs. And then we couldn't get a studio because of the lockdowns. And now Van Morrison is doing it. So people, do what you can do. And again, support us. We're doing everything we can. These aren't empty words. Subscribe to the Trends Journal. The more people we have, the more we can do.
How can people subscribe to the Trends Journal?
Just go to trendsjournal.com, trendsjournal.com. There's no magazine like it. We've covered this like nobody else has. What's going on, what it means, and what's next. Again, it's 70, 80 pages, 65. There's no magazine like it. And it's a weekly. And we're helping people prepare for the future like nothing you could find anywhere else.
Gerald, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
And thank you for having me.
My guest has been Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal. He was speaking to us from historic Kingston, New York. Coming up, Eric Hadik, next on This Week in Money.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. My guest is Eric Hadik, CEO and president of Insidetracktrading.com. He's speaking to us from the Chicago area. Welcome back to This Week in Money, Eric.
Well, thanks for having me back, Jim.
Eric, is the shine off gold?
I think for the intermediate term, absolutely. I know that when we were talking last month in late August, I was describing some of the monthly and longer-term cycles that I've been watching for a couple years, have been very consistent in pinpointing tops in gold and silver, and that since 2018 and 2019, I've been describing that I thought we would see two culminating peaks in gold and silver. One would be late August, early September of 2020, and the other would be April, May of 2021. And in between those two peaks, we're set to have a pretty deep valley in there. And so, in fact, I think you even titled our last month's interview, Have Gold and Silver Topped? And I think that gold has definitely confirmed some of the things discussed in our last couple of interviews, that it was topping, that even as we came into early August, gold was fulfilling a very consistent 12-week cycle that had just done this series of highs going back to early December of last year. Then the February 20th peak was 12 weeks, 81 to 84 days later. Then intervening peak on May 18th was right in that same time frame, and then 81 to 84 days or 12 weeks from that peak was August 6th to the 7th, when I thought we would see at least a 2 to 4 week and more likely a 1 to 3 month peak in gold, and from there a decline that should last 6 to 8 weeks from that early August peak.
Is the story any different for silver?
Silver, since March of this year, I've described why I thought that due to the economic environment and the phase within a bigger cycle of precious metals, that I was expecting silver to outpace gold between those mid-March lows and that final peak that I just referred to that I expect in April, May of next year. And with that, I thought we would see more of an inflationary environment, not just in silver, but in a lot of commodities. You can look at your Goldman Sachs Commodity Index, also corroborated that. And so I thought silver would definitely be the strongest metal during this 12 to 14 month period. And it has certainly affirmed that and validated that. And so what I was looking for in silver and what we got was a bit of a divergent top in late August, early September. And silver ended up setting its highest weekly close at the very end of August, spiking a little higher in September. And up until that point was maintaining more strength than gold. But since we have headed into a little bit of a deflationary phase between that initial surge into August, September, and what I expect to be a second rally into April, May of next year, that intervening valley that I referred to a couple minutes ago was something where a lot of that inflationary support in silver was expected to come out of that metal. And we've been seeing that after silver peaked at 30. It was expected to drop back to at least 21 and possibly spiking as low as $19. I was getting a lot of blowback when I was saying that a month and a half ago, but we're starting to see that confirmed as well. And I think that that's really going to be the pivotal level of support in silver, first starting at $21 and stretching down to $19.
What's going to happen with interest rates?
I still contend that bonds and notes, which trade inversely to interest rates, for 2 years I've discussed why I thought that mid-2020 would be a multi-year peak in bonds and notes. And so inversely, that's when you have a low in interest rates. And even if interest rates just stay at the near zero level where they're at, as Jerome Powell has committed to looking out for a couple years, that doesn't mean that the perception stays exactly the same. I think that mid-2020, July of 2020 was really the ideal time frame, is where I thought we'd see basically the greatest expectation of low interest rates. And as that perception starts to moderate a bit, that's when you get bonds and notes slowly coming off their top, going through a slow topping process, and then looking out 6 to 12 months would be when you'd probably get your first leg down in bonds and notes, even if the actual physical interest rate doesn't change, or at least the main rates that the Fed controls. You get, as I said, these different perceptions, and if we do have a second wave of commodity inflation, as I expect in early 2021, that could be one of the things that starts to impact bonds. So I think that bonds and notes have set what will probably be a multi-year peak, that interest rates are at a bottom, but again, that doesn't mean that they automatically start rising.
With the Fed pumping so much money into the stock market, can they stop or delay natural cycles that might occur?
I think they can definitely distort them, and that's where it's important to look at the correlations between different indexes, some of these divergent highs and lows, certain markets that peak way before other markets or indexes, even though they set highs and lows at the same time. So, for the last few years now, you've had the tech stocks and the NASDAQ 100 really leading and often carrying some of your big indexes. Meanwhile, you've got something like the New York Stock Index, which peaked in January of 2018 and kind of retested that peak in the beginning of this year, even though your Dow and NASDAQ 100, S&P were going into the stratosphere compared to previous years. The New York Stock Exchange Index was more or less setting a double top. So it's that type of comparison that is what you need to be very aware of, very alert to, because of some of that white noise, some of that muddying of the waters that Fed action and other action, even with investors and fund managers and whatnot. There's a lot of distortion can come in there. And what I describe too is when you're talking about bigger cycles and that type of action where you get a sequence of tops that in the lead indexes and the stronger indexes, each of those highs is significantly higher than the preceding ones. But then in these broader indexes or just indexes that are lagging, they're equal to lower highs, a sequence of them. I compare it to an old wooden roller coaster. And, each of those cars in the train that is the roller coaster, each of them summit at a different time, and each of them turn down at a different time. And it's not until that last car gets over the peak that then all of the cars can decline in tandem. And I think that's kind of what you see in these markets, that until the final strongest indexes and stocks set very significant peaks, then all you're going to get is the sharp sell-off that we continue to see in between those peaks.
We'll have more with Eric Hadik when This Week in Money returns.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com. This Week in Money is archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Eric Hadik. Eric, what's your outlook for the U.S. dollar?
The dollar is in a phase right now that I think is going to be seeing another decline between probably November of this year and March or April of next year. I know we've talked about this before, but the dollar has a very consistent, it's about a 3.25 year cycle, and this has been governing the major highs and lows for 20, almost 30 years, really. And the two most significant or the two most recent aspects of that cycle were when I was expecting a major peak in March of this year, which came in 38 to 39 months from the late 2016, really December 2016, January 2017 peak. And I think that the next low will, as I said, come into play in the first quarter of next year, which would be 38 to 39 months, which is what this 3.25 year cycle continues to be, from the late 2017, early 2018 bottom. And that would also fit with a broader, longer-term cycle that I know we discussed back in early to mid-2016 when all of the discussions circled around the U.S. election that was coming up, and my work was telling me to look for an overall corrective period in the dollar from 2016 into 2020, 2021. And that was consistent with what you have seen for the last 40 to 50 years. The dollar has declined on balance during Republican administrations, and it has advanced on balance during Democratic administrations. And that's why in mid-2016, even before the candidate was known, why I said I thought we would have a Republican president and see some dollar selling in that period of time. And the thing that's always interesting to me, and I try to keep my readers focused on this, is it's not just the dollar index, because the dollar index is one fiat currency being compared to a basket of other fiat currencies, so it always comes down to the healthiest horse in the glue factory type of mentality. But the real way to see the dollar's value was against gold, and that's why I said then and have continued to say that gold should experience a strong bull market from late 2015, early 2016 into late 2020, early 2021. So now we're coming into the culmination of that cycle, and I think that, as I said, the dollar should see another wave down. That would also play into this moderate commodity inflation scenario that I'm talking about. Part of that is often spurred on by a selling dollar, declining dollar. But then, when we come into second quarter of next year, I think that's going to be some very pivotal and decisive turning points in a lot of markets, in the dollar, in many commodities, in gold and silver. I think that that's when you enter a much bigger and more significant transition in most of the markets.
Looking at the stock market on its own, is the Fed going to do everything it can to keep it propped up until at least the election?
Well, I would just make that assumption regardless. That seems to be the case every 4 years, regardless of who's in office. And, I know since the 1980s there has been this speculation, this theory about a plunge protection team, and even expanding from that, those in power making sure that the stock market looks as good as possible. Ironically, from all of my work, I have thought and continue to think that September through December would actually be a very volatile time, with the market swinging pretty sharply back and forth in both directions. And funny enough, you can look at 1980 as a similar time, and that's also dovetails with the 40-year cycle that I talk about so frequently. But for all intents and purposes, we've done what happened back then. You saw a sharp sell-off in the beginning of the year in 1980, just as you did in 2020. You saw a bottom on March 23rd to the 27th back in 1980. You saw a bottom on March 23rd to the 27th in 2020. You saw a rally from that low in late March into late August, early September of 1980, just what you saw in 2020. Then you started to see a series of first a sharp decline, then a strong rebound that retested the highs, spiked above them, and this was all in like 2 and 3 week periods. Then another sharp decline that went down and spiked below the previous low, then another strong rally that went up and spiked just above the previous. So it was this expanding triangle type of formation. And that's what I think we're going to see here. And yes, a lot of it will certainly be tied to the election and expectations surrounding the election. So the Fed, I don't think, is the only factor in all of that. I think there's going to be many more corroborating and exacerbating factors this time around, and you're going to see these kind of head-turning shifts in the market up and down. And when you get to the end of the year and look back, it wouldn't surprise me if you look back and say, yep, late August, early September was pretty much the peak of the gains in the market, and since then it's gone pretty sideways on balance.
Looking back at bailouts in the past when there have been financial crises, is it wasted money for governments to prop up failing industries or banks?
That's one of those conversations that I think there's so many nuances to it and so much very overt debates, because it's when you're looking at it from a pure, unadulterated capitalist perspective, you've got one answer, but then if you're looking at it and even just by the smallest amount factoring in the human factor and many of the subsequent repercussions, all of a sudden you get the opposing viewpoint. And I think it does come down to a balance in there, and I don't claim to know every specific about the different industries that are involved there. You know, you can say that one, well, if it's not viable, then it should just be allowed to run its course. But nobody ever factors in all of the unseen and seen subsidies and other types of government intervention that help many of the industries there and hurt other ones, you know, whether that be even currency fluctuations and trade and tariffs and all kinds of other factors that also support industries. So when you get that whole argument about, oh, you can't support this industry, that's just government corporate welfare or something, that goes on in so much of the whole situation that it's hard to remove that or to just focus on that as your debate point.
What's crude oil going to do?
I think that crude has a period here of some back and forth, similar to what I was describing with the stock market. Would not surprise me to see another short, like 2 to 3 week leg down in October. I'm looking at a little bit past mid-October as being a very significant cycle in crude. So if it's able to confirm some new weakness in the coming week, then I would expect to see another sell-off into that time frame. But on the whole, I think from there it will start to angle back up, and that ultimately crude could probably go along with what I've described with the other commodities, that you see it gradually make its way back up into the second quarter of next year.
Eric, I know you pay a lot of attention to cycles. Are there certain weather cycles that affect the economy as well?
You know, that's one of those things, too, that unless you're talking about real extremes, any sort of weather cycle would have positive impacts on certain industries and certain agriculture and certain, could even be shipping and whatnot, depending on where you're talking about. And the opposite effect on other industries. So that's such a broad thing that I think it's more just an academic debate, and I've looked at some broader, you know, multi-century type of cycles and climate swings, and I think there definitely is a cyclicality to that. But I don't think it's something that you can directly apply to the markets with any sort of specificity.
We keep hearing that there's possible food shortages coming up. Do you see that?
I think that you get that's something that is also kind of regional and often happens during one season of specific commodities. Coming into this year, I was talking about several commodities, grains in particular, that I thought would see a surge in the third quarter of this year, from lows in June, maybe early July, and shooting up into September, and then we could actually see pretty significant peaks in September. There's been a very consistent 4-year cycle in soybeans for 20 plus years, and that was pointing to a sharp rally and a peak. I talk about this, that often the majority of a move in a market comes at the very end of a cycle, and it's kind of a 90-10 rule. It's kind of describing parabolas in the market. So even though I'm expecting a peak in September of 2020 in soybeans, my work was showing me that July, August, September would be the majority of the move up leading into that peak. And, you know, sometimes that's due to shortages and you know, food crises like you're talking about. In this case, it was really more of demand and the trade agreement with China and a little bit of shortage. I am looking, though, at the wheat market out over the next 1 to 2 years and thinking that we've been in a bottoming phase and that there are some specific trigger points, trigger levels that I'm looking at, and some specific cycles where I think that wheat can see some decent surges over that 1 to 2 year period. And that could certainly be tied into weather, both here in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere.
Eric, can you tell us a little bit about Insidetracktrading.com?
Certainly. We are, as you might guess from the whole discussion, a technical and cyclical-based analysis of the markets, everything from financial markets to commodity markets, and we sell different subscription services for a bit more active traders and also for your multi-year investors and traders, and also provide a wealth of archived articles describing these cycles, describing specific indicators that I use. And so it's an educational and informational site that really strives to not just give a trader some fish, but teach him how to fish.
Eric, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Thanks for having me, Jim. My
guest has been Eric Hadik, CEO and president of Insidetracktrading.com, Inside spelled INSIIDE. He was speaking to us from the Chicago area. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Bob Hoye, Gerald Celente, and Eric Hadik, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. Now stand by for a company showcase update from American Manganese CEO Larry Reaugh. I'm Jim Goddard. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and president of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
Thanks, Jim.
Larry, can you tell us what's new at American Manganese this week?
Well, we had a press release out on September the 21st, and it was released by the Clean Tech Group on the 23rd, in which Zarko gave a talk on our process. So that went over well, and then all of a sudden you think he put out he made a bad report on the company the way the market went down. But that's not the case. Every time we have good news, there's always a lot of predator selling that that pretty much sterilizes the rebound in the stock, and it's something that we have to fight through until the IROC and the exchange begin to realize that these guys are destroying the market for juniors, and as well as the Toronto Stock Exchange. But enough said about that. We were looking at the private placement, which we have received quite a bit of money on, and and now it looks like these guys are trying to scare everybody out, but I wouldn't get frightened by this. We've been through this several times, dozens of times, I should say. In the meantime, the battery days turned out to be the exact opposite of what everybody was expecting, and they were expecting a 1 million mile battery. Wasn't even talked about, and but there was some great innovation that Tesla introduced, and it did remind me of, and our investors should realize this: if you're working on a real project and it's getting results, there's a lot of R&D involved, and the more R&D you do, sometimes it tips the scales to having to do more, and it's not something that happens overnight. And it's not something that occurs without a tremendous cost. We've spent millions on this. So, on the bright side, Zarko was down observing the plant running last night, I guess, and he was very happy with what he saw. I can tell you that Cametco's very happy with what they're doing, and so there's nothing that should scare anybody. There's no bad news coming on that would would basically give people a reason to sell the stock. It's just not there. Now, the other thing is we're getting a lot more attention now from funds, and they're doing deep dives, and sometimes they have discussions for an hour or two with Cametco on the process, and so it's beginning to be realized out there that we do have the answer. I mean, in my opinion, there's nobody else that can do exactly what we're doing, and that's get back, up to 100% of the recovery of the cathode material and purity, high purity. So that should warm everybody's heart. I know the market right now is you got everybody sitting on the edge of their seat, but that's going to change very rapidly. Battery days is behind us. It still has some spill off, and even Tesla went down on that. So it's looking really good, Jim, as far as that goes. I've attached some articles on here that I think would be good reading for our listenership, and the main thing is that the battery industry is not slowing down. Recycling is going to be larger. There's reports in there that even though Tesla is moving away from cobalt, they're going to eliminate it totally. There goes the stability and control of thermal runaway in the batteries. So, that's something that we'll test out as time goes by. But I also have a report there that should be read, and that's on the smaller devices, which are significant in battery production. And cobalt use is heavy in those, so that's going to continue. With our MOU with Battery Safety Solutions in the Netherlands, they can treat that material and clean it right up to where we can process it, and that makes a huge difference. So we're trying to be on top of everything that we can, and just to let everybody know, we continue to work with the Tier 1 companies. We never said we stopped. I think somebody's trying to spread word that we have stopped working with them, but no, it's a lot of back and forth between tests and everything else, so we're still working with them. We're starting to get it. it's, you know, you would think that I was on a different planet here from the phone calls that we get. You know, we got people that are interested in our process or adapting our process to their process. And, you know, and it goes on and on and on. So, you know, I'm prepared to put up with the TSX Venture Exchange anything that I say, which is under NDA. You know, I'm prepared to show them the NDAs so that we can't use that as an excuse. So anyway, it's I know it's a bad week finishing up here, but you know, the stock is basically back at 19 cents, and that just a second, I'm just taking a quick look. You know, another 565,000 shares. If you look at the trading that goes on in the U.S. exchange, you'll see that it goes up at the same time. That's where the jitney and arbitrage the trades in order to lower the price on the venture exchange. And you know, sooner or later the regulators have to do something about this uptick rule. And that about finishes it for me, Jim.
Larry, the governor of California announced that he doesn't want to see any more new fossil fuel burning vehicle sales after 2035, I think 15 years from now. Is that good news for a recycling company like American Manganese?
Oh, certainly. Yes, I have actually attached that to this podcast. And yeah, I mean, when 35 million people decide that within 15 years there will be no more fossil fuel or ICE vehicles on the road, and they'll all be electric or hydrogen or whatever, that's got to be good news for a recycler and of batteries and of EV batteries and lithium-ion batteries. So, yeah, that's good news, Jim.
Larry, for people new to American Manganese, what is the company all about?
American Manganese is a critical metals company that's in the actually in the first or second stage of moving out their gold and copper and rare earth properties into a new vehicle in which our shareholders will get free shares in that on a ratio yet to be determined. But getting back to what they've done, we have patents on manganese that we developed back in 2010, were granted in 2012, and those patents are the cornerstone of our EV battery recycling. So that moves us on to the next stage, which is to become a commercial recycler. And now we also have abilities to actually treat other people's ores, and I'm not talking small company stuff. I'm talking big company stuff. And so that, and I can't give any name. But unfortunately, all these companies want NDAs. If I was to give their names, we wouldn't be sitting down in this area. But I have to go with the flow. Now, American Manganese is you can find anything out you want on our website, which is AmericanManganeseInc.com, or you can look us up on the exchange. We're traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY. We're traded on the U.S. Exchange under the symbol AMYZF. We're traded in Frankfurt under the symbol 2AM. You can reach us at our phone numbers, 778-574-4444, or you can email me at LREAUGH@AMYMN.com. And that's about it, Jim.
Larry, thank you so much for the update.
Okay, you're very welcome.
I've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on September 25th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.